All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Week number 7. We got the Sunday slate to dive into in today's video, with the exception of Sunday Night Football. That will be its own video on the channel. But in this video, we're going to dive into all of the other Sunday games. I'm going to give you my lean on the side. I'll give you my lean on the total. We'll talk about any other plays like player props that I like in each game as well. But as always, guys, keep an eye on the pinned comment of this video. That is where all of my final plays, if you do want to fade me, all of my final plays will live. In terms of last week, we have another profitable week. We don't have our Thursday Night Football this week results yet, so we're looking at last week, but we hit on Thursday night last week, hit in this video last week, gave a little bit back in Monday Night Football, but overall, 5 of our 6 weeks in the NFL have been positive. We'll see if we can keep that going here. But before we dive into the games, guys, hit that like button and hit that subscribe button as well. And keep dropping your plays in the comments. I say it every week. There's a lot of people in the comments that are a hell of a lot smarter than me and better at this than me. So show some flowers, show some love to the people that you are riding with in the comments, and drop your plays in the comments and get involved in the community there. But let's go ahead and jump into it. But again, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Starting it off with a rough one here. We got the New England Patriots and the Jaguars playing overseas. Patriots coming off of a bad game stomping against Houston. Jacksonville coming off of a stomping, I guess, in London against the Bears there. Now, there is something to be said that we're seeing, obviously, Jacksonville already there, and they played last week, so that's definitely an advantage on their side. But overall, this Jacksonville team is just bad, right? They had that one good week, I guess you could say, against Indianapolis a couple weeks ago, and then all of a sudden last week they get stomped by the Bears, who haven't even looked all that polished. On the New England side of things, they're just in a similar boat. So this is a messy game. I would take probably the Patriots with the points if I had a gun to my head and had to roll with it. You have 2 bad defenses, 2 bad offenses, but I guess at the end of the day, you at least have some optimism in New England because, Drake May is going. He's getting a start. He put up 21 points, 3 TD passes last week. Maybe that gives them a little bit of fire, and you have almost a touchdown worthy of points here with the 5.5. So I guess I'd lean in that direction. In terms of the total, that total is at, I think it's 42.5. So that graphic is wrong. So 42.5. I'd still lean towards the over, I guess, just because, again, 2 really bad defenses. And if you're concerned about Drake May, well, he's going up against maybe the worst pass defense in the entire league in Jacksonville, right? So I think there could be some points here. And overall, both defenses making the offenses look better. But I probably won't end up touching this game, to be completely honest, but I would lean towards Patriots in the over. Maybe a peek at Drake May over 1.5 passing touchdowns, just as a biased Patriots fan here, for plus 250 odds. Maybe that's something that could squeak its way in, but overall, messy game. All right, next game up, we're looking at the Falcons taking on the Seahawks. This should be a better game. We have the Falcons obviously led by Kirk Cousins, and they put on a you-know-what whooping last week. Now, albeit it was against the Panthers, but they put up, 38 points. Seattle, coming off of that Thursday night loss to San Francisco, in which they allowed 36 points. Their defensive numbers, if you just look at their raw numbers, actually look decent. But again, I still think we're close to the beginning of the year where Seattle played Denver, New England, Miami, then Detroit stomped them, then they played the Giants. Like, their strength of schedule hasn't been all that great. When they get tested, they've kind of folded. So in this spot, I'm going to lean towards the Falcons. I think that's the better move. I think if you compare the offenses, I'm not saying either team has a phenomenal defense, like I just said with the Seahawks. I do think Atlanta has some playmakers, so if Geno Smith makes a mistake, great. But overall, if you compare the offenses, I'll take Atlanta's all day long. Kirk Cousins versus Geno Smith, if it comes down to that, give me Atlanta. Also, Seattle struggles mightily against tight ends. I think we could see another Kyle Pitts game. Last week, we took his over in receptions alternate for plus money. He came up 1 shy, but we took his yards as well, and he cashed that in like the first half. So maybe that's something else we look at here, Kyle Pitts wise. But again, this comes down to the offense and sort of who's going to make the play. Is it going to be Geno Smith or is it going to be Kirk Cousins? The way that Kirk Cousins is kind of rounding into form here, I'm liking him in that matchup. So give me the Falcons here. Minus the 3, sure. Maybe we buy it to 2.5. You can get 3 at minus 105, so you're not paying that much juice if you do choose to look at the Falcons 2.5. I also don't mind them on the money line in H to H. I took them on the money line. Minus 150 is a hell of a lot of juice to pay, but to be honest, again, if this comes down to, a one possession type of a game, I think Kirk Cousins makes the big play. Kind of like we saw them make against Tampa Bay a couple weeks ago, right? In prime time. Like, they took it to overtime, then they win that in overtime. Like, I'll take that clutch gene. So money line or minus the points for Atlanta. The wide receivers and receivers in general obviously are kind of similar, but to me, it comes down to the quarterback, like I've said multiple times here. So give me Atlanta minus the points. In terms of the total, it's at 51. That's super high. Maybe just to look at the Atlanta team total. That way we can kind of just put our all eggs in that basket and kind of eliminate some variables. So Atlanta team total could be something that I'm thinking about and getting behind as well. All right, kind of an interesting one here due to some new guys, or I guess new guy in particular on the Bills side of things. Amari Cooper, I believe he's going to play, new receiver for the Bills, but 9.5 points is a lot. Now, there's no question, at least in my mind, that the Bills are the better team, but 10-point worthy, like that's pretty damn high. We just saw them beat the Jets by 3 points. Prior to that, they had lost 2 straight games now against good competition, Baltimore and Houston. I think they were underdogs in both of those. Tennessee's coming off of a loss to Indianapolis, and they could have won that game. They crushed Miami the week before. Tennessee hasn't really played well against good teams. Their wins, their win, I should say, this year was against that Miami team. So overall, I think the Bills are the move. But 9.5 points is a hell of a lot. Now, you have 2 good defenses in the mix here. Tennessee offense kind of stinks, but defensively, they're the 10th or the 9th, I think, top 10 defensive team overall from a DVOA metric perspective, right? Top 10, so the 10th in terms of passing, and then run, they're 6th. So I do think that there's a little bit of, defensive ball game that could go into the game plan here for Tennessee. And then Buffalo, also a top 15 defense from DVOA metrics and whatnot. So to me, this is probably a spot in which the best way to play it is not that -1, 9.5 for Buffalo, but maybe we tease that down in some sort of same game parlay, or maybe just some sort of teaser in general. Tease that down to maybe Buffalo -3 or -2.5, as well as moving that total up to say 47.5 or something like that, and then rolling with the same game parlay under and Buffalo there. So we could massage the numbers a little bit. I think that may be the only way to play this, because again, I do think Buffalo's the better team, better offense and comparable defense. 9.5 points, especially if, Amari's supposed to come in and hit the ground running, seems like it's a lot. Would I be surprised if they blow him out? No, Tennessee doesn't have the offensive firepower to keep up with them, but overall, it's still just a big, juicy number, right? A little bit too high for my liking. Now, in terms of player props here, I do think that there is a decent chance that we could see Tony Pollard look good through the air. I mean, he's having 2, 3, 4 reception type games, but if his line's anywhere at like 2.5 or maybe even plus money over 3.5, I like it. We've seen plenty of running backs out of the backfield catch the ball against the Bills this season. So keeping my eye on Tony Pollard's receptions line. I don't think we have a line as of right now at the time of recording. In fact, we can check really quickly, but Tony Pollard here, yeah, we only have his rushing yards and touchdown line out right now. So I'm going to keep an eye on his receiving yards as well as his receptions, but he hasn't been getting many yards off of his receptions, but he'll have 3 receptions a game. So, for 5 yards, I think it was last week, right? So I think that I could talk myself into a receptions line for him, especially the way that Buffalo's been allowing backs out of the backfield to catch the ball. So that's kind of how I'd play that one. But again, should be a Buffalo spot, but it's a high line there. All right, before we move on to the rest of the games, I want to talk to you about Underdog. They have a free square for Aaron Rodgers this week, 0.5 total yards. He has his man, Devontae Adams, now on the squad, right? He should be able to get that 0.5 yards, but it's not just passing, it's also rushing. All he needs is 1 yard in the game, and you get the W. So go check out Underdog, guys. Get that free square, as well as $1,000 or up to $1,000 in a deposit bonus when signing up. Go ahead and check it out. That link is in the pinned comment as well as the description. It's really, really fun to go and look at all these projections and whatnot for the players, and you pick more or less based on those projections. AK for this 0.5, you're going to pick more, right? But then as it plays out, you pick, more or less, put 2 or more into a slip. The more you win, the more you get paid out on that entry, and you can win up to 1,000 times your money over on Underdog, which is absolutely crazy. Go check it out. Link in the pinned comment. It's going to auto-apply all these deals as well as the description. Go ahead and check out Underdog. Let's jump back into these games. All right, next up here, we're looking at the Browns and the Bengals. There's no part of me that is getting to the Browns no matter what here. Now, 5.5 points for the Bengals does seem like a high number, but that being said, they probably could have beat Baltimore 2 weeks ago, right? They covered this line against the Giants, and I don't think the Giants are very good, but they're better than the Browns. I think that this could be a bounce-back spot for the Bengals offense, and if that's the case, I don't think there's any way, shape, or form that this Browns team keeps up. 32nd in terms of passing DVOA offensively, 30th on the ground. Now, they do get Nick Chubb back potentially, right? So is that going to be a huge piece? It could be. That dude's filthy, but overall, I still don't think that that's going to be the biggest of, game changers for them. I don't think he was ruled out of able to come back last week, but ruled out. Potential for week 7. If he comes back, then like I said, it's a big piece for them, but I don't think it's game-changing yet. Maybe by the end of the year, sure. But overall, if we're still seeing Deshaun Watson, less Amari Cooper now, I don't think this Browns team stands a chance. Famous last words, right? This is probably the game, like the coming out party for the Browns somehow. But overall, give me the Bengals minus the points. In terms of that total at 41.5, I think I'd much rather, and I'd feel a little bit more comfortable rolling with the Bengals team total over. And in fact, that may be just the one play to go, because it kind of is a hybrid of now the total, thinking the Bengals are going to score a lot, as well as now we don't need to worry about covering a touchdown. Say the Browns do look good offensively. So I don't mind that idea. I think it's over 21.5 for minus 140 right now, over 22.5 for minus 130. You get to 23.5, which may be the play at minus 105. I like that idea. The Bengals, prior to last week against the Giants, had 3 straight weeks of 30-plus point football. 33 against, was it Washington, right? 34 against Carolina, 38 against Baltimore. Are those the best defenses? No, but do the Browns have the best defense? Not necessarily either. Bottom 10 team in terms of DVOA rankings defensively. So to me, the Bengals should be able to put up a good number, and then we don't have to worry about winning by more than a touchdown. This could be like a 27-24 game, and we'd still cash if the Bengals did get to that number. By doing so, I think that there is some reason to take a peek maybe at Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase props, stuff like that. I like the idea of Jamar Chase probably putting one in the end zone, so maybe that's a play. As long as we get decent enough odds there early right now. So we're recording this Thursday night. Jamar Chase, 4 touchdowns. Looks like his line is going to be at plus 120. He didn't have one last week, but the 3 weeks before that, he had 5 touchdowns total. I think he jumps right back on board. So I'll look at Jamar Chase for a touchdown as well. Green Bay taking on Houston is where we're going next here. Now, there are a ton of injuries on both teams here. Green Bay, their entire skill position group is pretty much questionable. Houston, a lot of their defensive members are questionable, so we want to keep an eye on that. Both these teams have a good offense, so I think that we're going to see a decent game, barring, obviously injuries, right? Overall, I do think this kind of comes down to the defense. Now, Green Bay's defense has looked, I guess you can make the argument, pretty good the last couple of weeks, but they went up against the Rams, who were banged up, right? They went up against the Cardinals, who have been super, super inconsistent. They won both of those games, combined for like 6, or I think it's like average 16 points against. Houston, their defense is also looking pretty good, but they played Jacksonville, Buffalo, and New England. Buffalo put up 20 points. New England put up 21. Jacksonville put up 20, so it's like even them, they're kind of in a spot in which, well, 2 of those teams were terrible. Buffalo maybe had an off week offensively, had some guys dinged up, so I do believe in both of these defenses, but it's hard to judge in the last couple weeks or 3 weeks which team truly has the better defense. Overall, if we're seeing some health on the defensive side of the Texans, I think I lean in that direction, just because I think this could be a game that has I guess back and forth type of potential. And then I'd want that plus 2.5, maybe buying it up to 3 or 3.5 in my back pocket. So I'm going to lean Houston, but I totally see someone's side or getting to Green Bay here. Last 3 games, Green Bay is averaging 29 points per game. They're 4th in passing yards per game. Defensively, though, they're kind of middle of the pack, whereas Houston, last 3 passing yards per game, they're allowing the 4th fewest, the 11th fewest points. Rushing, maybe a spot in which we could see Green Bay have a little bit of success, but overall in the season, Texans have been decent against the rush. So I think this could go both ways. Me personally, I'm looking at the Texans in this spot. No major player props that I'm loving. Again, there's so many question marks out there that we want to keep an eye on those before kind of jumping all in on something, because one guy being out could ultimately kind of flip this thing on its head, whether it's defensively for the Texans or offensively here for the Green Bay Packers. In terms of the total, I've said the word defense a lot, so I guess I'm going to lean towards the under, especially if we do have some injuries on the Green Bay offensive side of things as of right now. And again, we're in the time of the NFL season where a lot of guys are going to be listed as questionable. It's a matter if they're practicing or not, but they have a dinged up offensive line. You have Jaden Reed, Wicks, you have Watson, Tucker Kraft, questionable. They're backup tight end to Musgrave. So a lot of guys are going to be, questionable in this spot. So points may be tough to come by if both teams are firing defensively, even though we have 2 good offenses. But that line at 47.5, I think is a little bit over reaction to how both teams have been playing offensively. So I'll lean towards the under, as well as give me the points in the pocket with Houston. I guess we're going to be saying injuries a lot because now we have the Colts taking on the Dolphins, and there are a ton of injuries on the Colts side of things. They're 3-point favorites right now, that total at 43.5. Jonathan Taylor's questionable. I think Anthony Richardson should be good to go, but at least dinged up, right? Michael Pittman Jr. questionable. We have Josh Downs questionable. Couple offensive line members for them, so we do have some injuries. A couple guys on the defense as well. To me, if those guys play, especially like Taylor or Pittman, Richardson, right? But even Flacco, I think, could get the job done. I don't mind Indianapolis here, -3 points at home against a dog water Miami team who just got a win a couple weeks ago, before their bye week, right? Against who? Oh, the New England Patriots. Big deal. This Indianapolis team coming off a win against Tennessee. They win 20-17. On the year, they're 5-1 against the spread as well, so you can't necessarily hate that. They're 2-1 straight up at home as well. And they played Pittsburgh, and who else? Their other Pittsburgh, Chicago, and then I think it was Houston, right? Week number 1, and they lose there, but were competitive in all of those games. So I do like them at home. And again, if they're healthy, I like them even more. Now, total-wise, it's sitting at 43. I don't want to take any sort of total with Miami involved. So this is another spot in which I'd probably take a peek at Indianapolis's, I almost said Indiana again, Indianapolis's team total, if anything. But it may just be like an Indianapolis moneyline play. Colts team total could be secondary. The spread's there as well. Like, I think this is Colts all the way. But when something seems so simple like this, sometimes that's exactly when you fall into the trap, you know what I mean? So that being said, I don't necessarily buy into anything that Miami's doing, so it doesn't seem like it could be all that much of a trap, but maybe that's the point. Maybe that's why it is a trap there. Hey, by the way, guys, I do have a link in the pinned comment and the description that allows you to see all of the best sign-up offers in your state for your sports book. So I'm going to filter Massachusetts. That's where I am. And you can see FanDuel, Caesars, Rebet, DraftKings, MGM with all of the latest and greatest sign-up bonuses. If you aren't on these sports books in your state and all the available ones, you could be missing out on some price discrepancies, which you should capitalize on. Why would you buy a car for $10,000 if you could walk across the street and buy it for $7,000? You know what I mean? You should be having multiple sports books there to help you become a profitable sports bettor. Getting the best prices and signing up on the ones that are available in your state is the way to do so. So go check that link in the pinned comment. Hop on some of the ones that you're not on. But as always, got to be 21 plus. And if you do have a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. But go check that out. That link is in the pinned comment. All right, we got a good one here. Minnesota hosting Detroit right now. Minnesota 1.5-point favorites. Totals at 50.5. These lines have been moving around too, so keep that in mind. I think Minnesota may be down to a 2, maybe even a 2.5 some places. So this line is jumping around, but overall, I'm going to sound the psycho alert alarm here. I think I may be fading kind of the consensus best team in the league right now. I'm going to look at the Detroit team. Their offense is cruising, 2 straight games of 40-plus points. Minnesota played, in London, right? Then they had the bye. Like, it seems like it could be a soft/flat spot for them. Now, again, famous last words. They go out there and roll and just keep proving. But to me, this is a spot in which Detroit should be able to take it. Last few years, Detroit has won. They've all been high-scoring games, but realistically, we haven't seen, the defenses look as good as they do as of right now, right? So we do have 2 better defenses on the field than we did, I would say, in 22, 23, or even late last year. So to me, defense should be a little bit better. In terms of DVOA rankings right now, defensively, you have Minnesota, who's 1 across the board, 1 overall, 1 against the pass, and 1 against the rush. You have Detroit, who's ranked 4th defensive DVOA, 5th against the pass, 10 against the run. So you do have 2 good defenses, but to me, I think that this Detroit offense is on another level right now. Now, it is important to note that Aiden Hutchinson, the best defensive player for Detroit, is out. That said, I still think that they can win this game, and you're getting decent value. Like I mentioned, some books, you have them at +2 dogs right now. You're able to get Detroit for +110. I think this is a close enough game that +110 could be pretty damn valuable, because to me, this is like a, toss-up type of a game. So maybe I like Detroit on the money line. Maybe we can get them at +2, have that in our pocket. But again, I sounded the psycho alert alarm. I totally get it if, we see Minnesota just continue to roll. But to me, they were playing so well. They've had their doubt and down spots and still kind of prove people wrong. But now, after beating the Jets, then having the bye, they are at home, I'll give them that, but it could be a little gotcha spot here. I'm not sure. With all the momentum behind Detroit, I do think there could be a little gotcha spot there. In terms of the total, I mentioned defense a lot again, and I do think 50.5 is a little bit too high. Now, maybe this is another spot in which we can get some value out of teasing it. So maybe we get like Detroit plus 7.5, keep it to within a touchdown and bring that total up or down depending on what we like. I'd say bring it up so we can take it under to like 57.5, something like that. So maybe that's a move here. That way we have a little bit of a safety net because this is a big game. The odds makers are fine tuning this one and have it pretty damn, set, So I will lean towards Detroit. Maybe it's the money line. Maybe it's in some sort of teaser as well as the under, but I'd like to massage those numbers a little bit. I think maybe a teaser could be on the way here. Keep an eye on the pin comment again for all of my final plays, including what we might do in that game. And that being one of the better games on the slate, let me know in the comments what you guys are rolling with in that one. Player props, spread, total, you like the teaser idea? Let me know what you're rolling with in that Detroit and Minnesota game because, again, it's definitely we have a couple really good games on the slate this week. That is definitely one of the better ones, though, so let me know. All right, moving on to one that on H2H, Tassos made me feel crazy for liking my side in this one, but we got the Giants taking on the Eagles, and to me, this is Eagles all day long. Now, obviously, Mailata's out, Dalton Kincaid, we have Dallas Goedert. Those don't even sound alike. I don't know what I was thinking there. He's probably going to miss this game, but, and it's a huge but, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, those guys are both back, and I think that does a whole hell of a lot for the Eagles here, so I'm Eagles all day long. I like them minus the 3 points. Maybe we buy it to 2.5. I like their team total over 22.5 as well. I took that and doubled down on it in H2H. Now, am I going to go all eggs in this basket? And then if they lose, I lose H2H. I have this pick and this pick on this video losing. Maybe. I've done crazier things, right? But to me, I don't know. I don't think that this New York team is as good. Now, they have a good front and good at, I guess, getting to the quarterback and whatnot, right? I just don't think that their defense is as good as people are giving them all this credit for. Like the Bengals game, sure, they looked good, but I think the Bengals looked bad, Prior to that, Seattle put up, 20 points in games in which they just tossed the ball. Like they gave so many possessions back to New York. They could have put up a higher number. Dallas, who we're coming to find out isn't all that great, put up 20. Cleveland put up, I just don't know if this New York team is as good defensively as people are saying. Now, again, maybe I'm the crazy person in the room and I'm going to look like an asshat at the end of this week because of my, affection for the Eagles this week. But to me, I like this spot all day long. Eagles, as well as their team total over. In terms of what we saw last week, they scored 20 points against the Browns, and it's like, oh, that's only 20 points. It wouldn't cover that 22.5. Saquon had one of his worst games, if not his worst game of the season. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith got going, but Jalen Hurts only really had one good half of football. There's a lot of potential here. If they scored 20 last week, they could score 3 more easily if just a couple of those things click a little bit better. So Eagles team total over, Eagles minus 3 points. In terms of the total, I think that we probably cover that with the team total over, so I probably don't want to touch that 42.5 there at all. I would look for Jalen Hurts also over 19.5 completions. That is plus 105 right now. If you can get it with a plus number next to it, I think that could be worth it. I think they're going to be able to pass on this this Giants team, kind of like they did, second half was it, against the Browns, last game. I think I would say 3 quarters, they looked pretty good. Had a slow first quarter. Second quarter, they scored 10 or 13 points, and then I guess it was 10 points because then they scored 10 in the second half as well. And I think that Jalen Hurts can kind of get things going here. Last week he had 16, but he was 16 of 25. I could see them throwing a little bit more. Maybe plus, over 1.5 touchdowns for him. Clearly, I'm way too big on the Eagles this week, and I'm probably going to look like a dummy, but you know what? That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. All right, next game, we got the Rams taking on the Raiders. Rams 6.5 point favorites, which is definitely a high number here. Their defense hasn't been great. I mean, their offense has struggled as well, but they've been super injured. Speaking of that, we could see Cooper Kupp back, so maybe that gives them a little boost. The Raiders, in terms of offense, has been bad. Their defense has been bad. I don't know if this is a game that I'm racing to the window to try and place anything, but to me, I do think that the Rams win this one. I think that they're probably the side. 7 points? That seems like a lot to ask for, but again, Cooper Kupp coming back, maybe he gets going a little bit. And then running back wise, I think that Williams should be able to have a decent game here against the Raiders. So I guess I'm gonna lean Rams, but again, I would like this way more if it was 3. Who wouldn't? It's a lower line, but that's more or less where I have it pegged. So overall, I like the Rams, but they may be a few points too high for my liking. In terms of the total, 43.5, it's also kind of of a weird one. I don't know exactly what to make of it. You have two really bad defenses, but it's not like these offenses are all that great. Yes, the Rams, even with Cooper Kupp coming back, should have like maybe a tad better offense, but 43.5, because the defenses are so bad, I'll lean towards the over, but you could probably tell in my voice, it's definitely not my favorite game of the week or anything like that. So I'd consider Rams. I'd consider the over. I'd be shocked if it's in the pinned comment as a final play, though. I hate to say it again, but I don't love this game either. We got Washington taking on the Panthers. We talked about it when we talked about Atlanta, right? They get stomped by the Atlanta Falcons, allowing 38 points. So there's nothing that tells me that Washington shouldn't be able to put up a good number against this Panthers team. Washington coming off of a tough loss to the Ravens. They're kind of due, I felt like, for a bad game, and the Ravens won, was it 30-24, 30-23, something like that. Overall, I think it's a bounce back spot for Washington, sure, but again, really high spread. The total's way up there. Even for a team total, I think we're looking at like 27.5, something like that, like pretty damn high. I don't see any reason, if Washington snaps back to what they were doing, I don't see any reason why they can't go out there and put up a high number, maybe 30 plus points, right? They did it in 3 straight weeks. In fact, they went 38, 42, and 34. That was against Cincinnati's defense, not that great. Against Arizona's defense, not that great. Against Cleveland's defense, not that great. But now they're playing the Panthers defense, who is not that great, you know? So I could see them getting to, 30 points or whatnot. But it's a decently high number. So I don't know if we're racing to play this one as well. I think there could be some potential for some player props. We've seen running backs put in work against this Panthers team. 1, because their run defense stinks. And 2, they're losing a lot of games. So the opposing team is running a lot. Even last week, Bijan and Algier combined for like 33 plus, or maybe it was 35. I think it was 33 rushes against them. Robinson may be healthy in this one as well. That could be big. But him and Eckler having some additional workload could definitely be in the cards. So I'll lean towards some maybe running back player props. I probably like that more than anything we talked about. Just not exactly sure what yet. If Robinson plays, I could see him, rushing in a touchdown, or even Eckler, maybe both of them, something like that. So keep an eye on the pinned comment for any running back plays, but I try to be pretty damn transparent with you guys. Washington and the Panthers, not exactly my favorite game on the board, but we do have a really good game coming up pretty damn soon. And when I say soon, I mean, all right, freaking now. If you've made it this far in the video, go ahead and comment 27. We're about to cross the 27-minute mark, so go ahead and comment 27 if you made it this far. But we have a Super Bowl rematch here. 49ers at home, 1-point favorites, taking on the Chiefs. The total is at 47. There are some injuries to note. Now, on the 49ers side of things, their offense is pretty damn banged up. We have Mason's questionable, Debo's questionable, Juwan Jennings is questionable. Nothing too crazy on the defensive, but we do see Collins, Elliott, and Mustafa also questionable. But again, we're at the point in the NFL season where if these guys are practicing, even if they're questionable, a lot of the times they play. Now, do we even need to mention the injuries on the Kansas City side of things? They've been struggling with them for a while. No Pacheco, no Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown obviously out as well. So it's Kareem Hunt, Xavier Worthy, Juju Smith-Schuster stepped up. Like, I'm not exactly sure that Patrick Mahomes has the best cast and company. Obviously, still has Kelsey, so that's great. But I don't think he has the best cast and company to play around with here. I'm going to say this. I think that this is obviously a good spot for the 49ers injury-wise, but just in general, like, this Chiefs team, to some degree, is due for a letdown or a loss, right? And this is San Francisco, who's coming off of a stomping of Seattle. I mean, Seattle, they win by 12, 13 points in that Thursday Night Football game, and Kansas City hasn't played in, I guess they had the bye week, so it's like they could be a little rusty heading into San Francisco. I'm going to go for with the Niners in this spot, but I will say injuries and all that, like, it's still Patrick freaking Mahomes. You know what I mean? Like, it's still the best quarterback in the league right now. But this Chiefs pass defense, which is usually pretty good, is actually a little lackluster this year compared to their run defense. They're second in DVOA rush defensively, and just middle of the pack. I think it's like 14th or 13th in terms of pass DVOA. And Brock Purdy has been pretty damn phenomenal. So this may be a spot in which Brock Purdy can get things going. They've also struggled against tight ends, the Chiefs defense. 58% production upgrade in terms of DVOA rankings per position, defense versus that position, to the tight end. So maybe we see another Kittle spot. We cashed a couple Kittle spots, his receptions and his yards last week. He also had a couple touchdowns, so maybe we like that spot for a Brock Purdy-Kittle connection again. But keep an eye on the pinned comment, because I think this is going to be a really good game. Obviously, the spread's just one, but I'm going 49ers. In terms of the total, I think, I don't know, that's so hard, right? Because this could be a shootout because Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, but it could also be a defensive game. Like I said that the Chiefs' pass defense has been lackluster, but it's still, top half of the league, so we could see some defense. I guess if I had a gun to my head, I'd lean towards the under, just because I do trust the defenses, and obviously we have a lot of question mark offensively for San Francisco, and then we know who's out for the Chiefs, so I'd lean under, but it's Patrick Mahomes, man. We could see a high-flying scoring game. I think last year was 25-21 or something like that, so it was just under this total, or 25-22, right? In the Super Bowl, came down to OT, but prior to that, it was 44-23, 31-20, and the Chiefs have won 4 straight against San Francisco, so we could see a high-scoring game. I'm probably not touching the total. I'd much rather go San Francisco money line, and then maybe that player prop talk I talked about with Kittle, maybe Brock Purdy and him connecting for a touchdown, but overall should be a damn good game. But like I said, guys, if you're looking for the Sunday Night Football video, that is going to be posted on the channel separately. Tassos does those each and every week. We still get comments to this day being like, where's Sunday night? You missed that. That is its own video, but that's going to wrap it up for me today. Let me know what you guys are rolling with in the comments. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and keep an eye on the pinned comment, again, for all of my final plays, what I'm actually rolling with myself. If you do want to go ahead and fade me, all those plays are in the pinned comment, absolutely free. 5 of our 6 weeks in the NFL, we've made money so far. I chuckle at it, but let's see if we can keep that momentum going. Catch you guys in the next one, right? Peace out.